to go ahead and get started. Kimberly, can you take a roll, please? Here.
Here.
Secretary Nat Compo.
Here.
Treasurer George Seifert. Trustee Lisa Middleton.
Here.
Trustee Carrie Nicholson.
Here.
Trustee Larry Williams.
Okay, well, we will observe our customary moment of silence. Richard, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're making a change to the agenda before approval. We're going to remove letter E and add in F. E is the Memorandum of Understanding between Albion College Education Department and Fritz Schumer Center for Teacher Development and Marshall Public Schools. And we're going to add F, Employment, Aaron Gear, Readiness Kindergarten Teacher at Harrington Elementary.
I think it's Geyer.
Geyer? Okay. So with those changes, can I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
Move for approval.
Support.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Members of the audience may address the board on agenda items only. Seeing none, we're going to move to academic highlights, Gordon Elementary School.
So good evening. I'm Matt LaFave. I'm the principal still the principal at Hughes, not the principal at Gordon. So nothing in the agenda about that, I hope. So Mike has a family issue he had to deal with tonight. So I'm going to bring up Mary Douglas and Heidi Kleinlein, and they are going to do a little building highlight presentation for Gordon. And they said, what do you have to do for this, Matt? And I said I could hit the enter button. They said, well, that's a pretty good job for you then. So I'm going to walk over here and do that.
So we found out about 3 o'clock.
No disclaimers allowed.
Yeah, there you go. That's what my dad says. Don't tell me how high the waves are. Just row that boat in.
Okay.
Roll. Burned up. So Heidi's on our PBIS committee, so she'll talk about this first tag.
I will. Are you all familiar with PBIS?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So each of the schools has their own unique identity, and they've developed kind of their own community for the PBIS, and the acronym at Gordon is STAR. Safe, taking responsibility, acting with kindness, and being respectful. And I believe that there was recently that too.
We have assemblies each month.
An
right.
assembly, and because I'm a traveling teacher, I'm not able to make a lot of the assemblies that they have. But this month, I believe that they are focusing on kindness, and there are fundraising activities that are happening with the VBIS in each of the classrooms. There are tickets that are given out to the students in order to all of the students will participate in the assemblies, but then there are tickets that are given for good behavior and taken to the principal, and the assemblies, the students' names are called, and there are certain things that the students get to do that are rewarding for the students.
They get to have lunch on stage with the principal, which is a fun thing. We also, can we pass these around?
Let's do.
We started this year. We discovered these when we were interviewing for principals. One candidate had these, and we thought, oh, those are cool. We're not going to hire you, but can we take your idea? And so these two are being good and compassion. And when kids demonstrate one of those desired attributes, their teacher gives them one of those little backpack tags. And they're kind of nice because they can last for several years, and you can have a lot of compassion tags by the time you leave Gordon, or a lot of responsible tags by the time you leave Gordon. And so it's a way to recognize them without giving them a toy or a Twinkie that, you know, is kind of a nice affirmation.
So, getting back to kindness and compassion, caught being good. It doesn't necessarily have to be done by the teacher in the classroom. It could be somebody, a teacher that's walking down the hallway, or a teacher that steps into your room and says, wow, what a great class, they're doing a great job, and then you report that back to the teacher, you feel special. And that's noted and hopefully delivered down to the office and moving forward from there.
So each month we've been trying to do a family night, and the book bingo night is something we've been trying to do for a few years. It was crazy. There were no seats. We had to bring in extra tables. Over 200 people were there. We had donations from the public library. Parents and teachers cleaned off bookshelves. It was electric. We had celebrity bingo callers, Mr. Leithhat and Mrs. Bennett. We had pizza. It was a sweet family night, and it was really fun. It had such good energy. And kids took home a lot of books to read. And then just this month, or last month, they had math night in November where they played lots of different math games in classrooms. They taught parents how to play some of the math games with kids. There was a coin drive, which Heidi had talked about earlier, to raise money. And the idea was the coins all weigh a different amount, and if we could get enough coins that equaled the weight of Mr. Leithhat so that we could make the teeter-totter move, then we could slime him. Well, that was pretty motivating for lots of kids. And the other thing in November is that there was the second graders have this Thanksgiving econ social studies history lesson where the kids have to purchase and have a budget or take on extra jobs in order to earn money to get that extra piece of pie. So kind of a neat thing. And they did meet the goal, and that's poor Mr. Leithhat. Really, what a good sport. It was crazy.
The tickets, though, the tickets that they generated through the coins, you got your ticket drawn.
Yeah, so it was a semi-random, right?
Yeah, but the more tickets you had,
The more tickets you had, the more chances you had, right?
What I personally like about it is they had to get to the weight of Mr. Leithhat
Right.
in coins in order to get the slime in.
So they were changing their coins. They were taking $1 in and getting pennies, right?
Right. So, I mean, that would encourage me to eat. So,
Oh, were you going to show that video right then?
I can show it at the end.
Okay.
If you guys want to see it.
So another thing we did this year, this is our second year of trick-or-treating for UNICEF, and kids K through 5 went trick-or-treating for UNICEF around the community. They still got their candy, but they brought in a ton of money, and we found some matching funds. So the money that these little Gordon kids raised, we were able to give, I think it was $1,200 to kids in refugee camps, which bought books, schools in a box. It vaccinated kids. It bought bicycles so that you could ride medicine from one refugee camp to another, for example, in Syria. It paid for vaccines, some soccer balls, some pretty good things that kids could relate to, and they felt empowered that they brought that money in. Again, they had to count it, and some of those coins ended up in the weighing Mr. Leithhat because I didn't want to mail all those in. So. Battle of the Books is a program that we started last year. 100% of the 5th graders participated our first year, or 2 years ago we did. And then last year we had over 100 kids participate. So this is our 3rd year coming up. It's a national program. It's been around for 70 years. We have a pretty fun take on it. It's to encourage a love of reading. And then other events that are coming up at Gordon, like the math night and the book bingo, we're having a science night in February, which is in addition to our science fair that we usually have in April. We're having another book bingo. You don't want to miss it. I mean, regardless of what you have on your social calendar, book bingo at Gordon is the place to be. We have a millionaire's lunch when kids read and pass AR tests on 1,000,000 words or demonstrate that they've read an awful lot. They can have lunch on stage, and we give them whipped cream in their mouth and lots of junk. But it's a big deal. It's tough. To put that in perspective, the first Harry Potter book is about 79,000 words. So 1,000,000 words is a lot. The sledding hill opens. As I left school tonight, I saw kids in the dark going down that sledding hill. it just brings joy to me. That is one of the most happy spots in the world, as good as Disney World is the Gordon Sledding Hill. Annie's big nature lesson is coming up in the spring. To get ready for that, 3rd and 5th graders have been buddying up about monthly. We've been taking nature hikes and doing different science activities. Gives the big kids a chance to mentor and the younger kids a chance to work cooperatively with kids they don't know. We have a Harry Potter reading club each year. On the side I've got a picture of some of the wands. Kids earn wands by reading and passing a test on the different Harry Potter books, and we play Quidditch and have a bunch of stuff. And then I was looking through our Facebook page when I saw that picture yet again of Mrs. Tucker. Every month, Mrs. Tucker wins that Hungry Howie's Pizza Contest every month since she's been teaching, and probably will for the rest of eternity. So I put that fun picture of beautiful Mrs. Tucker and those happy pizza eater kids.
We're gonna launch an investigation into it.
I think there's
All right,
in there, yeah.
so,
Who wouldn't want to please her? I mean, I'm telling you, right?
yeah, if you want to see it, I can show. It's really been getting slide. It's only 2 minutes, so this is worth the price of admission.
And our 4th grade teachers put this together.
Is that homemade song?
Yes, we made it during lunch. It was applesauce, oatmeal, banana pudding, in those big industrial cans.
Yeah.
It was probably 8 of those big industrial cans and 4 big things of oatmeal. It smelled pretty good, actually.
Wonder how it tasted. Very good.
That's fine.
That's our presentation.
Thank you, guys.
And, you know, didn't mention the zoo, didn't mention National History Day, what,
No.
personal restraint? Anything else?
Mind Up,
Oh, Sanford Harmony.
Sanford Harmony, and one other thing, is there anything else?
No, we've been trying to incorporate both the Sanford Harmony that the district is doing and Mind Up, which Gordon is piloting. They overlap a lot, but they're both really helpful. And you know, some of us were a little skeptical. What, 2 programs? But you can find ways to work them in little 6 minutes here and 4 minutes there. And the Mind Up program is this mindful breathing, and you know, it's supportive of the compassion and the good values and slowing down a little bit.
It is. The other aspect of that was, the other part was restorative justice.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a full class participation type of thing. The students can pass. For example, the teacher has to do a majority of the modeling. We sit in a circle, and there do have to be a couple of disclaimers about, you know, things that are being said within the circle, and that it can't end up on the playground, or you know, people being made fun of for saying something and sharing something. So teacher models maybe something like, I'm feeling a little discouraged about the way that our cleanup process is going, and I'd like some help with coming up with a solution for this. The students may say, I feel disappointed when I go out on the playground and my best friend doesn't play with me. I feel disappointed when my brother hits me at home, you know, just, and you never know what's going to come out of their mouths, but they go around in their circle, they have an opportunity to pass. If they pass, then you do go back and have them make a comment after everyone has gone, because they may not feel comfortable at first, but you also say that they can tag along or tag on to whatever somebody else has said. So I think that restorative justice is more on the teacher to student, like a one-on-one. For example, if a student were having a problem in your class and they ended up being on the hall for a few minutes just to calm down, or they were in the classroom and they had to go someplace in the classroom to get themselves recentered. You want to make sure that you speak with them before they leave, or as you're passing in the hallway. As an everyday classroom teacher, I think it might be a little bit easier. For the specials, it's not quite that easy because we're there for such a short period of time and then we're gone. So making that contact after there's been some kind of a disturbance, it's really important, and it sets the tone for the next class that you see them in, or the next 15 minutes when they re-enter the classroom. They have some kind of a place to go where they could actually talk to the counselor.
Our district is fortunate. The counselors we have are a good team, and this is a new process for us. And so a week ago, maybe 2 weeks, a week ago I think, Laura Baker and Laura Henley and Amy Lemon came in and modeled it with both fifth graders together in the cafeteria, and we went around and we all said a fact about something. Then we said how we feel, and then we said what we could do to make things better. And the first time, like Heidi said, some of the kids passed. They were pretty self-conscious sitting in a group of 50 people. But after the counselors were modeling, and Tracy and I modeled a little bit, when we went around the second time, they all had something to contribute. And what we noticed, that there was a little halo effect for a day or two, where they were a little bit, kinder and more patient with each other. It means we have to do it more often.
I heard the exact same thing about the middle school when they did restorative practice. There was a halo effect for a couple of days, and they reverted back to what they were saying they wanted to change.
So luckily we have that mindfulness with Mind Up, and we have that Sanford Harmony, so we have to keep going back to it, and hopefully for the teachers, that's going to make it easier because it's on our agenda for each day. I mean, we do get to it at least 3 or 4 times a week.
And the Mind Up was a decision that had been made by Mike and the staff at Gordon to do that program. But also around the same time, at the end of the school year, Dr. Davis had invited Harry Wilson, who had worked at Star Commonwealth for many years, and then was working in Washington, D.C. And I don't know if he helped to develop this program, but the Sanford Harmony is a program that we have this information, and it's been given to us. I don't think that we have paid out of pocket for it.
That's free of charge.
It's been free of charge, and there are some handy cards if you can actually get your hands on them. The teachers have in their classrooms.
I didn't know you didn't have them, right?
Okay.
Sure.
That's okay. But we do this as teachers, and we do this, and it reinforces what we do, and it reminds us to do it a little bit more often, and it's all about the relationship. So that's the direction that that's the challenge that we're always working with.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Yay.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. We have minutes, disbursements, and then 3 employments. Randy, you want to give us the background on the employments?
Well, actually, I would read that on the hires,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, if I can just yield to that.
Okay. So, if I can have a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? And George, for your, we removed E and added F.
Yeah, I saw that here.
Seeing,
Just for your own clarification, that's gonna come back on the agenda. It was just a coordination issue with Albion College.
Good, good.
thank you. Okay, we'll start with Carrie.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we'll move to report of the superintendent, special recognition.
Okay. I'm gonna talk about the 3 hires we have to report right now, and there's more coming. Heather Rothwell fills the position of noon hour supervisor at Gordon Elementary, yay. Ms. Rothwell is a graduate of Quincy High School. Shirley Ruffner fills the position of bus aide in the transportation department. Ms. Ruffner is a graduate of Albion High School. Aaron Geyer fills the position of readiness kindergarten teacher at Harrington Elementary. Aaron attended Eastern Michigan University, where she earned a bachelor's degree with a major in reading and a minor in early childhood education. She has a ZA endorsement, and she's completing her master's in curriculum and instruction. So we're really pleased to have her on board. Retirements.
Retirement, yep.
Jill Conley, hired into Marshall Public Schools on March 15, 2017 as a general food service worker at Marshall High School. Ms. Conley came to the district with previous experience in the school system and will be retiring from Marshall Public Schools with 9 months of service to the district. And that concludes that.
Any questions? Okay, we'll move on to discussion. Reproductive health curriculum.
We're gonna ask Don Beck to come up and address the curriculum. In your handout, you have or in your package, you have a handout in regards to this.
It is my great pleasure to talk about the thrilling world of reproductive health. So as most of you who've been on the board for a while know, there is some pretty strict legislation that we need to go through whenever we're going to implement any kind of change to the sexual education of our students in schools. Part of that involves having a reproductive health advisory board or a sexual education advisory board, which we do, and the board approved our board's membership early on in the year. And you should have a handout that shows who was on our board. And that includes board member, parents, members of the medical community, staff members, and with a student as well. So we met early on in the year. You can see we had 3 meetings. We had a lot of discussion at all 3 levels of what kind of education we were giving to our students having to do with sex education. We had some discussions as to what the effectiveness of that and what kind of changes we wanted to make. And we recommended some changes that we put up for public hearing. And those public hearings were on October 26th and November 6th, but any of our meetings were open. Anybody could come to any of them. And then finally, we took those changes to the Curriculum Council and they were unanimously approved, which is why we're bringing them to you today. I'm not going to go through every single change. You've got them all in front of you, but I will give you a quick overview of basically what we were doing at each level. The elementary curriculum is the one that has probably the least amount of change to them. So we currently have a pretty basic curriculum that we use at the elementary levels. We teach it in 4th and 5th grade. It's generally a puberty-based curriculum where it's about changes in your body, understanding what you're going through, and we found out teachers using 2 basic curriculums across the 4 buildings. So upon investigation, we decided we were going to stop using the 2 basic curriculums that were both approved in the past and get them to use one. And then upon further investigation, we found out there was a newer version of the one curriculum, which is what you see in there. And I just brought one copy of it here, which is Puberty, the Wonder Years. So basically, the newer version doesn't change all that much about the older version. It's got, when we analyzed it, it's basically got some updated handouts, some updated videos that are all free on YouTube, things like that. And again, it pretty much is just explaining to students, you know, you might have, you know, notice some changes in your body. You might get some funny smells coming out of you, things like that. Okay? So that's the first change that we're looking at, the elementary level. Middle school. Middle school is where we have the greatest number of changes, and we had a lot of discussion at the rehab committee. So basically, we've decided, upon the recommendation of the teacher at the middle school health level, that we're moving away from what was before an anatomically based educational curriculum. And what we mean by that is the curriculum in the past had been identifying parts of the body, looking at you know, charts of the innards of people, and moving to more a decision-based and rights and responsibilities and healthy relationships and things like that. So the teacher made some changes a couple years ago to move us in that direction and wanted to make some changes further in that direction. And we had a lot of discussion about what that would look like, and we agreed that that was a very, very good idea. Especially with our two medical professionals on the committee who gave us some data, both anecdotal from their personal experience and from the county level. We decided that was a really good idea to have our students making good choices and able to make healthy and adult responsible decisions at the middle school level, that we would put in some curriculum that would allow them to be able to do that. So for example, really good example is a culminating assignment in one of the grades is to be able to create a project where you're explaining to a friend what healthy decisions are. So you see, instead of analyzing things about the human body, it's making decisions that are healthy for your relationships. So it's that sort of shift. Then at the high school level, there weren't many changes to be made other than the teacher said that she wanted to bring in speakers. And bringing in a speaker on a normal topic, say as like social studies or English, isn't really that much of an impediment. You would just need to maybe speak to your principal and you can arrange that. But when it comes to any kind of curricular change for sexual education, you have to have it approved beforehand by the Reproductive Health Advisory Board. So it becomes very difficult because the board doesn't meet very often. In our case, in our district, it's once every 2 years. So if she wanted to have, let's say, a medical professional come in, she would have to wait every 2 years to have the person approved and then have the topics approved. And then let's say a year later, she decides, well, I think that person can't come in anymore. I'm gonna have to wait for another year before I can get someone else to come in. So she was saying, I really want these people to come in because the kids could learn a lot from a professional coming in and talking, like a doctor or a nurse, or even a police officer telling them about, the disturbing things that could happen if you start, doing things on your phone that you shouldn't do, things like this, legal choices. So we decided to give the leeway, as you can see from the curriculum, that as long as you stick to certain parameters and the speaker sticks within their area of expertise, we were going to give them the latitude to have the speakers come in. So it's basically giving them the square, that as long as they stay in that square, we're allowing them to do that. There are also two other choices that the committee decided to allow as well, which was condom demonstrations. And they've always shown birth control or an abstinence promoting curriculum 100%. And part of that is also showing how to use condoms, which is in the majority of schools in the state. So this is just an application a demonstration, and that was a recommendation of the committee as well. So, can I answer any questions for anyone? Like I said, you've got the full explanation with all the links and all the curriculum, and if you'd like to look at it, it's available in the curriculum office at any time.
Don, the guest speakers for the health classes, high school, that doesn't preclude either Greg or Scott vetting who that person is and talking with the health teacher about that.
No, absolutely not, but it does have to be within those two
Sure.
areas, which was the legal or the medical, and
Okay.
focusing on those issues.
Good, thank you.
I was able to attend 2 out of the 3 sessions, and I was really pleased with how engaged the committee was and how thoughtful they were as far as really evaluating recommendations and changes and not taking anything lightly at all. So I'm very comfortable with the recommendations that are being presented tonight.
Good.
Any questions?
Thank you for doing that, Bill, and for everyone else who sat on the committee. I know it wasn't, a ton of meetings, but it's still several meetings to go to and still takes time out of your schedule. So thanks for doing that.
Thanks, Don.
So
Thank
we're
you.
just discussion tonight. Do we actually approve of the next?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, next we'll go to CASMA 2018 award nominations. When are those gonna be due?
Well, the CASMA Awards Banquet is April 25th, 2018, and I think, Kimberly, they're due by February 9th, I think, 2018, yeah. So this is what we do every year. You know, there's a Citizens Award and a Professional Award, and there can also be a Special Accommodation Award. And with that, you have till February 9th, so think through it in January. By the final meeting, we can have a discussion about if you want to forward those, or we can just communicate that we're not making a nomination this year. Okay?
Perfect. Board session schedule at the upcoming January 8th, 2018 annual organizational meeting and work session. The board will set sessions for the Marshall Board of Education for February 2018 through January 2019. Potential meeting schedules will be presented for discussion.
Yep. So in your board packet under 7C, the work session and business session schedules. Just notifying you that there's a couple combined business work sessions. We're making recommendations to do a combined in November and a combined in December. And this is our recommendation on the schedule. If you've reviewed it, do you have any questions or any concerns at all? Okay. This will then be something that we act on in January, yeah.
Okay. Next, we have the nominating committee. Excuse me. We'll appoint a nominating committee composed of 3 members of the board. Shall not include more than 2 standing officers, and shall exclude the president. Nominating committee will meet prior to the organizational meeting and develop a recommendation for the slate of officers. The meeting of the nominating committee shall be posted and conducted in compliance with the requirements of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. So we're looking for 3 people. Anybody interested in serving on this nominating committee?
I can do it.
Richard, Lisa,
I'm happy to.
George, is everybody good with those 3? Okay. Who wants to take the lead to kind of coordinate a meeting with Kimberly?
I can.
Great. So Lisa will be the lead, and it'll be Lisa, George, and Richard, and from there, right?
Sounds good.
Okay, awesome.
deal.
Thank you, guys. Next is the MPR series on the Marshall annexation of Albion.
I just handed this out to you just to copy down, and Carrie, thank you for giving me the website. I was doing the live feed and watching the live feed, and having a little bit more that actually had it in print was helpful. Largely, it was an interesting series. Originally, when April, the author, came to us and asked us from NPR to do this series, and she's been with us for about 8 months now, maybe a little bit longer. I gave her, I talked with her about her purpose, and she just wanted to report the facts out because of how interesting the situation has been and still is. So I gave her pretty much carte blanche to do that as long as it didn't interfere with the context of school operations and those types of things. And really, we had very minimal interruptions and things like that in regards to her coverage. I told her I wanted to learn as much as we possibly could from the experience and not shy away from where attitudes or where perspectives take us, and she did a pretty good job with that. I think largely I felt pretty good about it. I think a couple of things that keep cropping up is really trying to find a way to build cohesiveness across the district and a cohesiveness within the Albion community with the Marshall Public Schools. I think in the last diversity committee, a comment was made about community, a sense of community and belonging and connection. And I think we have to do more work with that. And I think it came out in some of the comments that were being made, which were helpful. Some things I would disagree with and as far as opinions, but they're not my opinions. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let that ride and really felt like it was worth the effort to be able to open ourselves up to that. Did you guys connect into that series?
Yeah, no, I listened to all of them. Have you gotten any feedback from anybody else? Have you heard anybody else from?
No, we're trying to get a meeting coming up, I think, on some conversation. Didn't we just get an email, Carrie, about that?
Yeah, Susan Connor had wanted to get people together to discuss from the board perspective about the annexation and also to hear back from parents and some ideas about where to go from there.
I think it's an ongoing process of dialogue. At the diversity committee, we presented about the resilient schools, and it really felt like we had I guess a better realistic tenor about that meeting. It's past the, I don't want to say hype, but it's past the rawness of the annexation, and now it's more like, okay, we've done this. How are we going to improve it? What are we going to do to move this forward and make it work? And I think more and more we're starting to feel like people are coming to the table for that purpose. To look at how do we make it the best it can be. There's still some, feelings out there and quickness for defensiveness and worry about labels and different things like that, and we fully understand that. But we're trying to work within the context of our district as a whole, and we're trying to bring that forward. And it's nice to hear that we're having very real conversations instead of a lot of the stuff around the annexation.
Yeah, there's a lot of frank conversation. The one round of applause at that whole committee meeting was when there was an announcement of the comparison of this year's suspension rate versus last year's suspension rate. So there was a big round of applause, and it's much appreciated that we're making that sort of progress in spite of concern about other things, about labels and all, and we need to be conscious of that. But I think there was true appreciation for the progress that's been made this year there. So
yeah, and with that doesn't come easy. That wasn't.
Oh no.
That wasn't just because we made changes. It's also because our teachers every day and our administrators and our support staff every day are carrying a heavy lift and making sure the kids remain in school and remain in the teaching environment. So there's a big cost to that because people are getting a little burned out about it. But ultimately, kids are learning and behaviors are improving and things are changing in Harrington, which is very good to see.
I think that has a big impact on the conversation in the community and at the diversity committee meeting, that if Harrington was not making the progress that it was making this year and people are feeling more positive, I think there would still be a lot of that raw feelings. I think people are ready to, most people in the community are ready to move on.
Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to action item financial resolution for the collection of summer taxes.
Yeah, I'll read the background. A district that has previously authorized a summer tax levy and wishes to continue with that authorization for the 2017 tax year must adopt a resolution to determine to continue the summer tax levy and file a copy of that resolution with each taxing authority by January 1, 2018. The proposed resolution is consistent with the district's past practice of collecting 50% of the school tax levy in the city of Marshall and Fredonia townships. All other taxing authorities will continue to collect 100% during the winter levy. It is a recommendation of the superintendent that action item financial be approved as presented.
Can I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Support.
Discussion. Kind of what we do every year, right?
Yeah.
So this is just staying the same as it's been done in the past.
Yeah, you have a copy of the resolution in here.
It's basically half in the, it's taking half of the levy tax and putting it in the summer. Is that right?
No.
For Marshall and Fredonia townships. And then the other municipalities get 100% in the winter.
Okay. Nothing else? We'll start with Lisa.
Yes.
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 Okay. Move to board professional development. Early literacy week.
Yeah, well, I got an apology to make. I'm not gonna be able to give it its full focus that I wanted to give tonight because of a very extreme day that we had today. So what I wanna do is, you have a copy of the House bill. It's usually referred to as the third grade reading law. I'm just gonna give you some broad strokes today, and I wanna get into a little bit more detail about things that we're doing to move early literacy forward. The broad scope process of this is that as of the beginning of this year, we were required to select a screening tool, one of 3 or 4 screening tools identified by the state, and we chose STAR Early Literacy because we currently use STAR Literacy and screening for 4th and 5th grade, and this STAR Early Literacy actually goes down to kindergarten. It was required that we use that screening, and in that screening, that drives the identification of students that may be more than 1 year grade level or behind grade level. And once you've identified those kids, they require a individual reading intervention plan. And in that, what we call IRIPs, because schools are always great with little acronyms, the IRIPs are then really a service plan when identifying areas of strengths and areas of challenges in reading for each child that's more than a year below grade level as they came in the school year. And through that process, we also work with the parents in identifying some interventions the parents could do in concert with what we're doing in the school, so that they're asked to actually do something at the home in regards to early literacy that would support the plan overall. Once that's signed off and implemented, any child that's receiving an IRIP receives an additional 30 minutes of group instruction based on level per day. And we already do 90 minutes of instruction in literacy, ELA. This is an additional 30 minutes on top of that per day. And we can't supplant, we can't change what we already offer. It's got to be additional. Then what we do also at the beginning of the year is we do a benchmark assessment with Fontes and Pinnell. That is our diagnostic tool that talks about what level of a reader do we have as they come in and what kind of level of comprehension do they maintain. And at the benchmark, that along with the screener tells us very clearly where the student is operational. And then we move them forward. After that first benchmark, there's also a benchmark in January. There's another benchmark that happens in May. So we have a first of the year, we have a middle of the year for progress, and an end of year for outcome. Along with that, we do what we call progress monitoring with Fontes and Pinnell. And generally, almost every month, there's a progress monitoring that's done. It's abbreviated. It's more focused by the teacher and coordinating assessments about where the student is operating from an instructional standpoint. The Fontes and Pinnell benchmarks actually measure where they can operate at an independent level, and so the assessment's a little bit different and more involved. So we use that progress monitoring to report out data, and then we take a look at the data on how our kids are moving. And also in each of the benchmark assessments at the beginning of the year and the middle of the year in January, if we identify other students, new students coming into the district or students that are already here that fall more than 1 year behind in grade level, then they also get an IRIP. And our expectation is, and this is the first year we've done it, is that the students that are IRIPs, by the time they get to January, if we add more kids, we're hopefully seeing progress where kids are no longer needing or requiring that. And then we could eventually move forward with a reasonable amount of students. I wanted to present you some data, and I will do that next time, because I want you to see where our kids are at in the K through third grade level. There was a lot of publicity around the third grade reading law because of the mandatory retention of students who are not working at grade level, reading at grade level by third grade. And that doesn't get implemented really until 2019. So we're in 2 years of this new change. A couple things I want you to be aware of is that we've identified kids that are more than a year behind, a year or more behind in grade level, they get an IRIP. Kids that are lower than grade level, they are constantly going to be progress monitored. Kids that are at grade level or above, we continually give additional work and challenge their reading to keep them going forward. But that 30 minutes extra per day of instruction, you have to ask yourself, well, who's going to do that without supplanting what they currently do? Because that's an add-on.
Right.
And it's not funded.
I was gonna say, who's funding this?
It's an unfunded mandate. So, Becky and I are looking at the budget. We have a steering committee that's made up of each of our principals from the elementary, and Don Beck, as well as myself, Maureen Slammer, and Peggy, what's her last name? Pardon me? Stewart, thank you. And so we're sitting there talking through the process about how we're moving forward. One of the things is we received a $53,000 grant that I requested from Cronin Foundation that supported what we're doing with early literacy. And in that grant, we doubled down on Fontes and Pinnell and bought all the brand new kits that are not only new, but they're also increased rigor on expectations of where students should be reading at a grade level. And we're gonna roll that out over time so we're not shocking the parents and shocking the kids and shocking the teachers. But we're gonna have to roll that out and talk about what is that gonna look like then as we go through this year and next year. So by the time we get to 2019, we're hitting the mark that we're looking for. We're also talking about what additional support we can give at our buildings to support the additional 30 minutes of instruction. And if a student stays with an IRIP 1 year, into the following year, you have to increase that 30 minutes by another 30 minutes. Now, you gotta think about, there's only so many minutes in a day of instruction. So at what cost are we having them be instructed additionally? What are they gonna miss? Social studies, science, art, specials, it's a law that requires us to apply that during the school day. So we're gonna have to figure out how does that work and what does that look like best for each of our buildings. I gotta tell you, I'm really impressed and respectful of what our teachers do with reading instruction. Maureen Slammer has taken some quality time and built what I call the Bible or the digest of reading objectives and comprehension objectives at each of the levels of Fontes and Pinnell. And so a teacher can look at that and know that these are things they definitely have to focus on and standards that they definitely have to get kids to perform on and show that they have some level of proficiency before they move on. And it's complicated. It's a lot of hard work, and we're gonna continue to improve what we do. I'm excited about it, and next time we sit down, I'll keep this on the agenda so that we can talk about data, and I'll show you how it's progressing, which will be great, because we'll also have the next benchmark assessment by the time we get back and have this conversation.
Dr. Davis, can you comment on special ed students? Like if you have a student with a cognitive impairment who's behind, do they still need to repeat third grade, or, you know, are all the students treated the same? Maybe somebody has a vision issue and
Learning
has a harder
disability.
time.
Yeah, I don't want to misspeak on that response, but special ed students with IEPs are assessed differently. And we're assessing them at not on Fontes and Pinnell, but on trying to think of the other tool we were using. But more, it's just a different level that we're doing the assessment. But I'll look at the law and so forth and come back and respond to that. I apologize, I don't have the answer for you today.
Randy, in any of the discussion, I know you said that there's a part where there's a component to have the families do something at home,
Yes.
or give the families like a toolkit to use at home. Was there any discussion on like winter break that's coming up, spring break, summer, on these gaps of instructional
Absolutely.
time when they're home?
Yep.
I know as far as retention, like over the summer from the end of the year to the beginning of the year, I always hear teachers talk about, you know, making up for that time over the summer at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah, and last year, last spring, we Linda was involved in this with Maureen, and they were sending books home with the students that were in the lower performing group, asking them to continue to work on their skills and asking the parents to be involved in that. And we do have some data about how they progressed and how they tested in when they came in the fall. We're going to continue to do that because those gaps are critical. And if parents don't recognize it, just simply reading with their child, or at least having their child read to them and then asking probative questions about the main character and the theme or the plot of the story and details behind it, and then helping kids expand their vocabulary, word recognition, etc. Those are all critical things that we need to make sure everybody's practicing at home. By the way, we are in the Reading Now network. We also got selected into cohort A, so Harrington is in cohort A, which means we get the full work with the Western Michigan University's grant. It's going to give us additional resources to bring a coach into Harrington that will be really doubling down on Harrington and trying to help this process go forward with kindergarten through third grade. So we're really excited about being a part of that project.
That's great.
Brings an additional 20,000 or something to the district, to Harrington, to help actually help some of the resources.
Does this stop at fourth grade? Like if you're behind in fourth grade, you don't need to have like two or
Well,
however
we're not
many
going to
hours.
stop in fourth grade. I mean, we do Fontes and Pinnell all the way through fifth.
I mean, the extra, like if you were behind and you
the
did
main-
it at 30 minutes more, and then the next year you had to do an hour more.
Yeah,
Does that stop at some point that?
I don't believe it goes forward with the requirement for additional instruction. But at that point, we have our reading specialists who do a lot of work with our fourth and fifth grade. The good thing is the screener that we use and the so STAR literacy continues to be used at the fourth and fifth grade level, and we continue to do Fontes and Pinnell. And like I said, the rigor has increased, so the requirements for teaching reading are going to be a little bit different as well. But yeah, the additional instructional time, I don't think that continues forward. But again, I'll look at it and verify. Okay, no slides tonight.
No slide.
No slides, next time.
We'll move to public comments. Any members of the audience can address the board. May I ask you keep any comments to under 3 minutes.
Thank you for letting me come and speak to you. My name is Abby Albright, and as I look there, I know most of you. and I know most of you out here as well. But I come here I've been listening to all these wonderful things that you've been talking about that are going on in Marshall schools, but I'm coming from a little bit of a different point of view. I'm a 30-year retired teacher, not all in Marshall, but a good portion of it. And I sub still 10 years later, and my colleagues think I'm crazy for doing that, but why do I do it? My children live in Oregon and Colorado, and so I want to keep in touch with young people. As my son said, I've been given a great opportunity because I sub kindergarten through high school to see the maturation of the brain and everything. But anyway, I'm coming here to you to speak something that I feel very passionately about and something that's very important to me. My two children were graduates of Marshall High School, successful in their careers and everything, but I'm here because I believe that schools are committed, and Marshall is, to serving the needs of all the students, and I'm going to say all. And I know with all the legalities involved in everything, there are many abilities, there are highs to lows, there are abilities, there are a lot of differences in behaviors. And I believe, though, that every student has the right to be educated to the best of their ability. But there is a wide spectrum in the schools from, as you've been talking about, from the highs to low, and I emphasize in both academics and in behaviors. And so I find that there is perhaps a balance problem that's occurring in the schools, that there's a little bit of a pendulum shift, and I know there are a lot of legalities that are concerned, and it's for reasons of privacy, I cannot go into any specific ideas or things to say, but I want our kids to all feel safe at all times, and I think that that's really important, and I don't know that that necessarily comes true. So anyway, I think that all our students should be able to achieve whatever they can achieve to the best of their ability, but I would like you as the board to know that I'm coming here because I would hope that maybe you could investigate with Dr. Davis or whatever and start some sort of I don't know what to say, a dialogue perhaps on some of these other issues that I don't feel comfortable in saying specifically, but I do think there are issues that you need to think about. And being safe is one of the things that's really important. And also, again, I know your job is not easy. You have a lot of things to talk about with Marshall, among yourselves, and you give up a lot of your time to do this. So I thank you for that, and thank you for letting me come and speak my piece. So,
and we appreciate your service, Abby.
no, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments? Okay, board members' comments for which no action may be taken at this meeting. Okay. We are needing to move to closed session. Can I have a motion?
Support.
And we are at George.
Yes.
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 Yes.